All right, Chapter 4, Underwater Arc Cutting and Welding Equipment. This is using U.S. Navy Underwater Cutting and Welding Manual. Chapter 4, Underwater Arc Cutting and Welding Equipment. Introduction. The chapter presents the information concerned with the underwater cutting and welding technology, the equipment necessary to conduct with such operation, including our discussion of the only required with the equipment setup procedure. The information will particularly be used during the planning and staging phase of any operation, because no two underwater operations are exactly the same. As each of the must regard as unique. The planning, preparation, and execution of the underwater cutting with the welding operation. Be careful to work out each of the jobs to avoid planning operation with the table. Just recommend the equipment, the particular job, the considerable event of the information. Appropriate specifications are included. Only approve the equipment that should be used except for the exceptional situation. Equipment used for the underwater cutting, the welding, the oxygen arc, the shield metal arc cutting, the under oxygen arc cutting, welding, shield metal, the arc cutting, the welding are performed basically with the same. The equipment typically arrangement. The equipment is illustrated with the figure 4.1. Additional accessory not included. The scrape, the wire brusher, which are included in both underwater cutting and welding operation. This equipment is in table 4.1. Diving equipment. The standard Navy MK-12 with a sublight with a 17 helmet with the conducting underwater with the conducting welding operation. The helmets have the welded wide fill with the welding shield with it can be attached with the shown figure 4.2.4.3.4.4. Special technique information necessary to operate the diving equipment is addressed for the operation of the maintenance instruction for the MK-1 with the Mod M0 lightweight diving outfit. And the MK-12 SSD for Superlight is 17B and Mod 0 helmet, and the other Superlight is 17B with the Mod Light 1M helmet. 4.2.1 Welding Shield. The MK-12 welding shield is securely secured to the helmet with the spring of the clip with the hooking the forward edge of the side of the rear viewport, retaining the rubber cushioning on the rear of the shield. The body help with the hold in place. Lenses clipped to the mount of the hinge section, but the hinge section can be flipped up and down with the held in position. Flat denting spring with a replaceable lens with maybe gold foil laminated with the polycarbon. And are supplied with the 4, 6, and 8 commercial shade, the lightly dented with the dark shade that are available on both seldom required. The close up view with this welding shield with the particular indications illustrated in figure 4.5 and 4.6. Alright, 4.5 shows your typical underwater arc cutting equipment. Show the work with the ground, the electrode oxygen level, the electrode holding cutting towards the 400 amp safety switch, single pole with the ground cable, the water line, 400 amp DC welder generator, power cable, oxygen hose, oxygen regulator, oxygen cylinder, manifold. 4K12 SSD welding shield for the and also your lens holder. Standard welding lens light shield with a retaining ring and springs and welding lens. Superlight 17 NSB helmet lens holder assembly. Alright, this shows the MK-12 helmet lens holder assembly parts and identification. Adhesive pad short, adhesive pad long, base screw cap, show the lens clip, lens and nut screw cap, screws, lens cap, screw cap, grip, mounting clip, mounting clap, screw, the hinge, pin, lens holder, spring, lens holder, nut, and screw cap. Alright, lock nut washer star, washer with the mounting screw with the mounting ear, washer star with the welding lens and frame, the bumper and snap ring. 4.1 recommended equipment for the undercutter, arc welding, and welding driving equipment. The MK-12 with the MK-4, the Superlight with the 17B Super, the diving system, welding shield and assorted welding lens, heavy-duty rubber glove, the black type, and surgical glove, the communication system, cutting and welding, DC power with the drawer with the 400 amp, the safety switch for the ray with the 400 amp, the 250 volts welding cable, sizes of 1020 bolt together, the cable connection, the necessary bolt and nuts, the C-type ground clamp, the amperage prong meter, the electrician's DC voltmeter, the cutting equipment, the underwater cutting torches, the oxygen hose, the manifold cutting and cylinder is more than one of the to be used, the two-stage high flow high volume regulator, leak detector, leak tech, and the soap side of the welding equipment, the electrical holder, weighted wire brush, stripping hammer, the scraper, the ultrasonic thickness, and the flaw detection device, the dye penetration test. Special technical information necessary to operate with the diving equipment, the rest of the property surfaces of the supporting the diver's system, diving system and technical manual. The AC warning: the AC power should not be used with underwater cutting and the welding due to the extreme danger involved with the AC underwater current underwater. Electrical shock produced for the AC current prevents voluntary relaxation muscle with the controlling handle. Consequently, the diver may be unable to let go of its body equipment that accidentally entered the electrical circuit. Alright, 423 power supply requirement. The preferred power supply with the underwater cutting is about 400 amps larger enough for either than driven the DC welding generator with a minimum of 60% duty cycle with the generator with into an independent voltage amperage called Control figure 47A should show the control of the typical generator welder power source with the minimum capacity for the 300 amps is applicable. However, the cutting time is considerably larger whenever the power is reduced to 400 amps over the required for the sum of the operation DC generator. The more generators, rectifiers, except for power supplies, emergency 200 amp. The machine set for the peak or the near peak load may be sufficient for the short period of the time. Rectified motor driven type of the machines may also be used. 4231 power converter. The power converters are just as the names imply with the input alternating current with the primary power is path of the circuit breaker of the rectifier where input with the transformer to the DC power portable power converter. They are low for somewhat limited in some particular with the salvage work with a ship of the show, but shore power is available. The figure 4.8 shows one of the unit which with only 70 pounds to deliver the maximum of the 80 volts open the circuit with adjusting of the current kit range of the 30 to 375 amps. Power converters should not be used with the work of the deeper than 150 feet salt water. Within more than 200 feet of the welding lead, it will work beyond the boundaries would overwork the machine. The type of the machine will be support cutting operation to use the exothermic technique for the short period. However, the long burning job of the water slammer power the use of the welding generator recommended for the type of the until the accommodated the cutting operation steel tubular electrode when the use of the electrode driven the machines ensure that the primary power supply can be air laid separately away from the welding current supply cables. Alright, motor generator power source if they consume large amounts of the energy during the entire running of the period of welding. Rectifier power supply will require significant energy only during the welding in the cycle. This may be important in consideration when applying with the normal logistics support. Alright, this shows your typical welding generator power converter panel. 4232 welding generator pre-set up with inspection. Successful underwater welding cutting of the highly dependent on the efficient running of the power supply unit. But before any underwater takes place with the welding power source, it should be fully inspected with the qualified personnel. The communicator for the motor generator they should be cleaned with the brushes, may be successfully short or worn. The slack of the brushing, the ringing spring of the must be replaced for the operation welding generator beyond this capacity. The duty cycle weld metal soldered rotator with the winding connection for the commutator. Reduce the generator capacity during the future uses of the generators and incapable of achieving the rated capacity of the duty cycle of the interior of the housing should be checked for the traces of the soldered deposit with all power surfaces should be checked with the confirmation of the rated capacity before the use of the motor generators designed solely with the semi-automatic welding equipment are not suitable for the underwater applications. Table 4.1 lists the equipment required for the underwater cutting welding. 4233 polarity underwater cutting the welding operation used to perform the DC electrode negative of the straight polarity. Typical equipment of the arrangement is illustrated in figure 4.8. The cable of the electrical holder is connected with the negative terminal of the DC power supply with a positive ground cable to connect with the work. These major electrode manufacturers call for DC electrode negative and set up with the occasional there is a requirement of the reverse polarity, sometimes referred to as DC electric power. The particular electrode is improved the welding noted in chapter 3. This will normally be a recommendation of the electrode manufacturer will be printed on the electrode box, including the accompanying literature. 4234 Polarity Test. The polarity welding generator is uncertain. All terminals unmarked not legible is necessary to determine the polarity before proceeding with the welding cutting operation. The procedure of the test is follow the power source of the tab with the connect with the ground and welding leads for the terminal. Attach a small plate with the ground cable to plate for the electrode with the electrical holder cutting the edge applicable. Personally perform the test for the opponent most properly with the insulated with the current with the immerse the plate with the tip of the electrode container in the salt water and hold them at about 2 inches apart. We'll call the switch on and then one the following will occur. Heavy steam with a bubble will rise to the electrode, typically indicate with the straight polarity, and the DC electrode negative, and then leads the terminal label the terminal's welding machine. Your 400 ampere DC welding generator ground welding machine must be ground with a 400 ampere safety switch size of the 2.0 cable connect ground cable to be clamped to the work electrode holder and cutting torch. If the bubbles appear with the plate, switch off the current in the chain for the lead with the connection with the opposite terminal. Repeat the test and label the machine terminal with the future reference. Once the correct polarity is determined, the ground cable should be with both of the positive lead, but the electrical holder attached with the negative lead. 4235 tongue tester ammeter. The tongue tester ammeter with the possible portable instrument that will measure the current flow with the circuit with the metal making electrical connections to it. And the most important tool to have on hand while setting up the for any during underwater cutting in the welding operation. This is especially true when the uncertainty is of the output of the welding machine. Costly mistakes and wasted bottom line may be avoided by simple taking a tongue reading test before the diver enters the water. The steep will eliminate the doubt when the actual welding generated the ampere output. They have been many holes burned in the ship's bottoms of the diver who assumed the welding machine functioning properly when in fact the delivering amperage performed in excess of the dial setting. On the other hand, there has been many hours wasted by divers trying to weld and burn in with little amperage. Determine the exact amperage output of the welding generator. Take a long meter reading while wait until the diver establishes the arc in the welding. And simply encircle with the welding lead with the tongue with the testing ammeter with the clove. Then clear the accurate reading will instant register on the scale with the will clove with the circuit reading with the tongues are only slightly pressure with the one finger with the trigger and self-closing. See figure 4.9. Do not rely excessively on the valves to indicate with the control panel knobs are insulated with the meters, but they will not include the exact current with the voltage measurement. The tongue test ammeter will read the actual current passing through the welding cable. 4236 amperage volt for the understanding welding electricity with the internal amperage with the voltage that is important with the diver involved with the underwater cutting with the welding and electrical arc welding is same with the other electrical circuit. They are three factors: simple electrical circuit with the current flow with the electricity with the pressure of the force needed to affect with the current flow with the resistance flow force to regulate the flow of the current. Current is a rate of flow. The current is measured amplitude determine the amplitude amount of the current that flows through the circuit and per second the amplitude of the current that provides the heat necessary to melt the base of the metal. The pressure, the push of the force of the curve of the current to flow with the pressure is the voltage measured for the machine. The output of the curve of the arc is essentially with the same. But before the arc strike, the arc is broken. The voltmeter read with the read the volt across the show the tongue testing. Ammeter. Machine will not current flow with the circuit of this is known with the open circuit of voltage that is higher with the voltage and when with the current flow with the closed circuit with the referred to the arc voltage. Resisting the restriction of the current flow is an electrical circuit that every component of the circuit, including the conductor, welding, ground leave that offer the resistance of the current flow with the current flow for the conductor is easier than others. Resistance depends on basically on the material and the thickness cross-sectional area of the conductor. Welding leads are made with the copper sin for the lowest electricals resistive of the common metals. There are no variable factors affecting the welding machine. This includes the size of the type of the electrode, thickness of the metal to be welded, the type of the joint, and skill of the technique with the diver. The current range is published in the sort of the manufacturer varies corresponding with the same classification size of the electrode. The underwater welding cutting operation should be started without using the setting listed in Table 2, 1, 3, 3, just as necessary to produce the desired effect. 4237 diesel-driven welding generator amperage voltage setting. In addition with the setting without the diesel polarity, the machine must also be set with the correct amperage voltage set to proceed with the welding machine vary according to the type of the machine, according to the manufacturer. Therefore, the manufacturer's operating manuals instruct with the particular machine that can be structured and closely followed. Mostly driven welding generators have two control dial with the one adjusting the desired amperage for the welding voltage adjustment. The several types of the welding generators thoroughly with the same naval commercial industry. Other functions that are operating with the setup are essentially the same. Caution: arc can damage for the welding machine. Switch contacts do not change the arranged switch in position while welding under load, arcing causing pitting of the movie eventually render the contacts inoperative. The dial on the operator is left with the amperage range with the course amperage control. The range of each with the switch position displayed with the nameplate with the amperage range with the set before the welding begins not to be adjusted. The actual welding is in progress. The dial on the right, the fine adjustment control says circle the welding amperage open, circle the range voltage between the minimum and the maximum value for the close range selected with the range switch. The scale of the surrounding with the fine adjustment control with the calibrated percent that does not indicate the actual amperage value and final adjustment of the adjustment control may be adjusted while welding. The procedure is setting up the typical welding generator. With the amperage range set at 100 to 220 position with the fine adjusting set with a 0%, with the welding generator will produce 100 amps at 24 to 26 closed circuit volt. By fine adjustment of the 35% position, the generator would produce 140 amps at 28-30 closed circuit voltage. Should they must be more close to the circuit with the voltage desired with the same amp, the amperage range can be moved with a 65 to 140 volt range. Fine current adjusted to 100% position with the arrangement which causes the machine to produce 140 amps at 34 to 36 closed circuit volts. This setting often shows the produce a smoother beard, less arc with them better with the penetration. However, they increase the underwater cutting due to the increased voltage pressure. Note the amp range with overlap. This allows the amperage and the voltage adjusting the thermal of the machine range. All right, 424 is your safety switches. Safety switches are also preferred to do knife switch. Disconnect switches are referred to as the electrical circuit to protect the driver with the electrical switch when not connecting the welding welding. A typical 4-pole safety switch is used with the underwater cutting the welding and equipment shown in Figure 4.1 and 4.8. Using a single pole knife switch is always located with the welded side of the electrical circuit that must be rotated to handle the maximum welding current. Additionally, the safety switch must be mounted vertically on the non-conductive wood, plastic, etc. Stand. The safety switch has been open circuit with the potential for the 80 volts across the tilt pole to prevent accidental contact with the switch. Should be fitted with the non-conducting slotted cover. Using an approved with the positive acting safety, which would be the welding cutting circuit with the mandatory with the switch must be mounted so that the handle the upper position during the welding cutting the switch should be accidentally fall, and the circuit is broken. Then switch illustrated in Figure 4A with the correct orientation and safety, which protects the driver and allow the current flow with the open only with the driver is. Actually, cutting the welding has the electrode poised and ready. When the single pole with the switch, even the special care must be taken with the switch with the knot to be shown with the out, bypass, and then it can occur with this break of the insulation between the welding machine and the safety switch. And important to remember the wet, breathed, and worn cables between the machine switch and either single or double pole can be shorted out with a braiding against the frame of the welding machine. The hot combings and lying on the sealed deck cable in condition would constitute potential source of danger. 425 power cable connectors. Power cables have a particular job depends on the total length of the circuit. This has 2 to 0 with the success with the extra flexible welding cable recommended for the work with a considerable distance with the power source because the voltage drop is loose less due to the lower volt resistance should be used with the total length of the cable, including electrode and ground leads if it exceeds 300 feet. With the total length of the leads exceeds 400 feet, the 3 to 0 size cable should be used to reduce the resistance of the length of the cable attached to the electrode holder, sometimes referred to the whip lead, may be a size of 1-0. Extra flexible cable. This will enable the driver to easily maneuver the electrical holder as he welds. In addition to the length of the cable to resolve the connectors produced with the voltage drop to prevent the excessive voltage drop of the welding cutting lead, the desire to have the various length of the continue with the held lead on hand welding lead produced each with the 50, 100, 200, and 300 foot lengths will prevent preventable current loss of that connection. Successful cable should be laid with a straight line that the layers are used because of the coiling sets up the electrical field, reducing the cutting of the welding efficiency to compensate with the voltage drop of the welding circuit. The open circuit, the voltage must be increased with the voltage drop for the various side of the cables as shown in Figure 410. With the voltage drop, it does not include the effect of the constant resistance, which can be minimized by making sure that all the connections completely insulated with wrapping the rubber and tape with applying with a layer of the Scotch tape with the final wrap with the electrical tape. The importance of the waterproof connections can be laid over and emphasized with the underwater cutting and welding, and the poorly insulated water connections allow the considerable current leak with very rapid deterioration of the copper cable. Poorly insulated connection between the whip and single lead with the welding lead can be extremely dangerous to the driver. The bolted on connectors are preferred as they likely to work loose. Life of any of the cable is increased by proper coiling when the cable is not in use to minimize the excessive exposure to oil. 426 gas manifolds. Manifolds sometimes referred to as coupler blocks, or if the purpose of connecting two or more, some of the same kind with the gas with the discharge all of the cylinders through one regulator. This manifold is desirable to when necessary to furnish for the uninterrupted supply of the gas when it's needed to supply the gas with a greater rate than supplied with a single cylinder. Manifolds are subject to full cylinder pressure, but they should be therefore be strongly constructed. Oxygen manifolds should not be made with steel, iron, copper tubing. It should be capable of withstanding hydrostatic pressure tests at 1 1/2 times the working pressure. For example, the oxygen cylinder rated at 2,000 psi manifold should be tested hydrostatic at 3,000 psi. Extremely care should be taken that there is no oil, grease, or solvent is in the oxygen manifold at high pressure as oxygen is connected. 427 underwater oxygen arc cutting torches. Warning: it's unsafe to operate with the torch with a flashback or rest in place. If you do so, with the may cause the injury to destroy the torch. Underwater oxygen cutting torch is designed with the rippling cutting electrode to deliver the power of the electrode oxygen with the electrode bore. Safety is the primary consideration. Designed with the construction of the current carrying the parts of the torches must be fully insulated with the full protection. The of the electrical shock to be protected with the torch of the rapid corrosion and the due to electrolysis. Torch also should be lightweight with a simple construction, easy to maintain. Should incorporate with the electrode lamping. Alright, this is the voltage drop in welding cables. Just show the size 1, 2, and 3. Current amperes at 100, 200, 300, 400 amps. Between voltage drops at 100 feet, the 2, 4, and 6. Alright, device, which makes it change the electrode underwater is a relatively simple task. Only the torches have been designed specifically underwater cutting should be used with the torches messed off. They have sufficient capacity for the maximum current required with the electrodes with the torches used with elements for the oxygen are cutting torches. The collective with the grip of the holes. Tubular cutting electrodes that provide the entry of the oxygen into the cutting of the electrodes. Bore the oxygen valve with the controlling oxygen flow rate with electrical connectivity attaching power cable. Flash arrest to prevent hot particles from entering the torch, but never under any circumstance operating with the cutting of the torch with the flame arrestor of the vinyl screen. Insulated coupling between the electrode oxygen valve and the safeguard for the operating with the electroshock to prevent the damage valve due to the electrosis. Complete the installation with electrical carrying metal parts of the torch and safeguard operation against the electrical shock to protect the metal parts from the deterioration of the electrode. The diver can check with a particular torch with the electrode hold the electrical integrity of the calling for the switch on the electrical not in contact with the workpiece for the bulb due to the electrosis should arise only with the electrode tip of the bulbs bulbs occur elsewhere and the current leaks from the torch electrode holder itself. Our figure 26ABC illustrates the elements of 3 torches specifically designed for the underwater or oxygen or oxyar cutting. 4.3 Equipment for the underwater shield metal arc welding. Because of the same equipment used for the underwater cutting with the used for the underwater welding, with the exemption of the torch and welding generated welding leads, and although the torch can be adapted to water welding, it is not practical to do so. Underwater electrode holders, which are lightweight, are recommended. Electrode holders. Underwater electrode holders differ from those for the top side with their installation method of the holding of the electrode. Underwater holders are designed with the twist grip, the action, the grip of the gripping the electrode. The electrode can be used installed in one position, 45 to 90 degree handle holder with the elbow. But the surface of the holder will usually allow with the 45-90 position electrode. Underwater electrode holders should never be used with the top side welding. They are designed to be cooled and by surrounding heat of the surrounding water and when rapidly overheated. So oxy arc cutting torches can be adapted by welding by the checking of the cullet fit of the welding electrode. However, they are somewhat heavier for welding. Most experienced divers prefer the lightweight underwater stinger, as most of the often called the electrode holders designed. The welding should only be used for the purpose of the never scrape of the hammers. The net more of electrode holders specifically designed for underwater are commercially available. 4.4 Welding accessory. In addition to the basic equipment, the following accessory that are necessary for the underwater shield metal arc welding: a supplementary weld shield that is attached with the diver helmet with the field number 4, 6, 8, or 10 with the appropriate welding lens. Suitable ground clamp with the C-clamp with the shoe with the ground level with the bolts of the preferably brave that must make it easy to diver to connect the lead to the work. A weighted wire brush for the cleaning of the base of the metal with the removing slag. A chipping hand with the remove of the slag on the light rust of the paint. A scraper for removing the marine growth and rust and paint with a particular bad case with the hammer and chisel that may be necessary. Tongue testing and meter, ultrasonic thickness and flaw detection equipment when required with material particle test kit, electrician, DC voltmeter, pneumatic hydraulic tools, and in planning any underwater work, every effort should be made with the obtaining the check all the equipment. Great prior to reaching with the job site. Table 4.2 the tab. Typical load out of the welding and cutting of this load. The equipment is suggested the minimum load out of the operation used the 2 divers of both welding and cutting are the same. Table 4.3 and 4.4 provide in the parts of the imperative location of the commonly used underwater cutting and welding equipment. Table 4.3 to divide with the 2-column lift. The manufacturer vendor code with the list in the defense supply catalog in handbook H41 and H42. Name the address, phone numbers of the manufacturer. Label 4 listed the divided in the 4 columns listed. And the description alphabetically, military specification, go federal stock code, and manufacturer's part number if applicable. 4.2 the equipment loaded for the welding, cutting the welding operation. 2 DC and 2 quantity 2 for each of the DC welding ports with the 400 amps capacity. Checking the flow of the operation prior to load out fuel and oil source required for the power load out. 3 each of the knife switch with the 200 volt minimum. 3 welding, cutting, each setting welding the two sides that are larger. Each consist of the 1 ground with 100 foot length of the actual working depth of the C-clamp attached and emergency bolt on the 2 inch by 6 inch by 1.5 inch flat bar on one end. 100 foot cable to the welding machine to the knife switch connection. 1 cable for the knife switch to the electrode connection to determine the depth of the working location of the knife switch. Alright, quantity 1 each. The oxygen hose, the underwater cutting length determined by the working depth. 4 each of the electrode holders with the width. 2 each of the cutting torch with the 1 carry cable to see chapter 2 with the 242 way with the AR oxygen cylinders. 2 cylinder high oxygen regulators. 1 oxygen manifold. 1 and 12 bolt on connection lugs for leads. 6 for each 1.5 inch 5/8 and then the copper bolts and nuts. 2 each quantity. Tubes of silicone lubricant electrical holders, 12 each for the dark lens, 4, 6, 8, and 10. 4 each for the lens holder. Appropriate helmet, 1 each for the top side welding gear. 1 each topside oxyacetylene burning gear, 1 each for the amper tong meter, 1 each for the electrocution volt, and 12 pair of the rubber gloves, 24 pairs of Playtex type gloves, 48 pairs of surgical gloves, and 6 for each of the soft leather rod bags and rubber bands, 6 each wire brushes and handles, 6 each for the chipping hammers and hand, 1 each pneumatic impact wrench, 1 inch grinder, impact wrench 1, grinders large with 12 grinding discs, small grind with a 12 grinding disc, and chipping hammer, needle gun, chisel needed socket box, and hose of 50-foot length of the OR, 1 each for the hydraulic power supply, impact wrench grinders large with a 12-inch grinding disc, 12 with 12 grinding discs, jackhammer socket box, hose bundles 50-foot lengths. 2 each for the framing squares, 2 each for the pipe wraparound, 1 each for the ultrasonic thickness flaw detection device, 1 each for the dye penetration testing kit. Tender's tool cut, Tender's toolbox, 2 each for the hacksaw with extra blades, 1 assorted open solid adjustable wrench, assorted each for the screwdrivers, 2 each for the center punches, 2 sets of the files, hammers, 2 4-pound mauls, 2 10-pound mauls, 1 sledgehammer, 4 each of the roll electrical tape minimum, 4 each of the rolls rubber tape minimum, 4 each for the roll silver duct tape minimum, 10 feet of a high strength tubing. Rigging equipment: AR 1/4 inch rope wire, 1/2 inch rope wire, 2 each wire come-alongs, 2 each chain come-alongs, 2 each air tuggers, cables for tuggers, bender tools with bands and clamps, slings, chokers, and snatch blocks. Alright, miscellaneous: surface floodlights with extension cords, underwater light cable with a spare light bulb, surface in underwater, approved ground fault detection and interruption devices, underwater flashlight and spare bulb, batteries, 1 of the 2 flowing systems, 350 still underwater camera with strobe with closed attachments, TV system, camera with light and monitor system with video, audio, handheld helmet mounted on videotape. Alright, then here's your list of manufacturers. And show the part identification, inverse nanometer amper tonnage, battery 12, bolt cutters, bolt unconnectors, shipping handlers, cutting step screws, cutting tips, spacer sleeves, DC welding power, DC power, so impact of the 400 air core, electrician bolt meter, electrical holders, C air stinger, 2 electrical holder broco, electro oxy or cutting C jet air care, and self tubular tough coat. And then you got your electrodes. And then your epoxy, your FS Stinger cutting ship, the fuel regulator, high capacity glove, the rubber Playtex and surgical ground clamp, the hand mechanical igniter, carry cable, control panel, 10-foot high powered manifold carry Kerbal sealer, 6mm 50-foot roll, and 9mm 50-foot roll, 12mm 150-foot roll. 150-foot extension lead wire cutter, insulation sleeve, 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch British steel double mated adapter, 1/4 inch by 1/8 inch double male adapter, nice switch, 400 amp 250 volt, unfusible map gas M70 cylinder, oxygen cylinder, 200 cubic feet per minute, oxygen hose, oxygen regulator, high capacity oxygen regulator, Bracco high volume oxygen scraper painter, shrinking tube, ultrasonic measuring device. Underwater cutting torch and a air Bracco craft welds, weighted wire brush welding cables, sizes 1, 2, and 3. Alright, Appendix A is a documentation reference. Appendix B is a metric conversion chart. Appendix C is the bibliography. Appendix D we're going to read, and Appendix E is exceptional situations. I yet to see that through, though. And then a glossary and an index. So let's start with Appendix D, then.